what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello everyone and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv. My name is Alan Jackson. I am with the Foot Candle Film Society, and with me is also from the Foot Candle Film Society and Foot Candle Film Festival that's put on every year is Chris Fry. Chris, how you doing, man?
I am doing well. I am really happy to be back talking about movies. Excited that we're getting more movies, back in theaters, returning to the theater. It just seems like, knock on wood, things are kind of back to the way they should be, where like you have movies, rolling out. So excited
Mark
about that.
this because now Chris has officially jinxed us.
No, I said knock on wood. But yeah, I know.
No, I hope so too. And we do have a couple of big films to be talking about today on the show. This is our ongoing podcast where we review new films that are out in theaters or online for streaming. We also share some movie news along the way, which we do have a few news items to share later in the show. And at the end of the episode, we each give a recommendation of a film that we recently either caught back up with, got to see for the first time, enjoyed online, and we'd like to recommend it to you to consider. So today, Chris, we're going to be talking about two fairly big movies, although one's doing a lot better financially than the other. First up, we'll be talking Dune. This is the latest iteration of the story of Dune, as told by director Denis Villeneuve, and we'll be discussing that film. Then we'll be following that up with a discussion of Edgar Wright's new film, Last Night in Soho, written and directed by Edgar Wright, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie. So we've got two great films to be discussing here, Chris. You ready to go ahead and jump into our first one?
Let's do it.
All right, let's talk about the film Dune.
My planet Arrakis is so beautiful when the sun is low. Rolling over the sands, you can see spice in the air. The outsiders ravage our lands in front of our eyes. Their cruelty to my people is all I've known. What's to become of our world?
This adaptation of Dune has been long delayed, but we finally gotten to see it. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who gave us, amongst other things, he gave us Arrival, which was a science fiction film that was original. He wasn't adapting anything. It was original to him and had Amy Adams. And I think Alan and I are on record as both liking it. Mm-hmm. And he did Blade Runner as well. Nice. So he's really well known for that.
Which I thoroughly enjoyed. Yes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So he's kind of got a good track record. With this, obviously, as Alan mentioned in the intro, he is adapting something. Now, I'm curious, Alan, a lot of times on the show, things come from books. You haven't read it. I have, or, I think
that was a good generalization. Chris has read things Alan has not. Well, which is true. Alan does not read much.
That's not. I know you do read, but you don't really go after like novels and stuff.
Yeah.
So this has two sources that you may be familiar with it. One is a David Lynch film that he made in 1984, although he would not claim it, but starring Kyle MacLachlan and Sting in a little skimpy Speedo jumping around waving a knife.
Yes.
Have you seen that film?
I have. Okay. It's been a very, very long time.
So do you remember anything from it?
I remember it enough. I mean, I was pretty young when I saw it, but I remember not understanding a single thing going on and generally not enjoying it. So, yes.
Okay. Interesting. So you do barely remember, but not enjoying it. Okay.
Yes.
And here's the softball question, which I kind of know the answer to. Had you read the novel, Dune?
No.
Okay. So for me, I had read the book and I did not like it, which probably means we're going to get a lot of hate mail. I will get a lot of hate mail because people will be like, oh, it's such a classic. How, I thought it was really dry and kind of boring. Now, I had seen the Dune book or the Dune movie before I'd read the book. And I don't say I understood it all, but I'm a big David Lynch fan. I thought it was weird. I wouldn't say everything worked in the movie, but it's interesting enough for me to have seen it a couple of times.
Okay.
So not a perfect movie. So that brings us to the 2021 version of Dune. Alan, what was your overall impression of Dune? Did it improve upon your experience from the 1984 version of Dune that you had seen?
Well, yeah, absolutely. It didn't take much for that to happen in general.
Okay.
I have liked almost all of Villeneuve's previous work.
Okay.
So that was setting up for something where I felt like I at least could come out of this with a very visually interesting film. My question was going to be, did the storytelling hold up? Because I know it's a very dense story. This is a part one, which I think, we're not spoiling anything. I think it's really important, actually. We're doing more of a preventative measure here by letting people know it is a part one. So there are going to be some criticisms that it's not truly a complete story that you're seeing in this one singular film. And I knew that going in, which was good, because I think I would have been very disheartened if I had not realized that at the end. I did like this a lot.
Okay.
I think it works on just about every level it needed to work on. The story, although still complex, is no more, the way it was told in this film is no more complex than a lot of sci-fi films made these days. So it is a complex film. It does require a lot of kind of thinking through who the people are, who the players are, who the different camps and groups and planets are. But it was never overbearing. It never got to the point where I just kind of mentally gave up and said, I don't know what's going on. And visually, even if the story had been even more muddled, the visuals made up for it for me. Dune is not a movie I expected to go in to see a lot of great acting and character development. You kind of go in wanting to see the spectacle of the story and how well it's told. And in that, it works.
Gotcha.
I thought the acting was all really good.
Okay.
But I don't think I don't feel like any of the performances were such standout that made the movie better than it was. It was all down to how you're telling the story visually, how you're doing it in a way where you can still follow the characters you need to follow and understand the dynamics of what's happening. And knowing that, yes, you are going to be building to a conclusion that's not a satisfying conclusion yet for anybody.
Right.
All of that being told, I think the movie works. I think it works really well. I find myself wanting to go back and revisit it again, which I haven't had a chance to do yet, but I do plan to do. So yes, I liked it. I think it worked. I enjoyed all aspects of it. So
Okay.
Chris, you obviously have a much richer history with the film, with the franchise than I do, or the story. So tell me, how did you feel about this one?
So, I like you. I didn't know this maybe like several months ago that it was going to be two parts. It was only when the film, I guess, got close to coming out, and I guess critics have seen it, people seen it fast, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, this is just part one. Mm-hmm. So I am really glad that I knew that going in, because I think I'd have been like, I'd have been cranky, really cranky walking out of this if I hadn't known it was, part one. That being said, I did like the film, but probably about halfway through it, I felt like, and the illusion works because we're talking about Dune, I felt like we were walking through sand really slowly. And it just like, there were interesting things. The visuals were good. But I guess because I had prior knowledge of the story, and I'd seen it, both through reading it and seeing a filmed version of it, I just felt like I felt like it was slow for no other reason than to break it into two parts. And that was frustrating to me because I felt like it could have been achieved in one movie. Now, I will say, that being said, I am interested to see what he does for, I assume, at least 2 hours in Dune Part 2, because I had enough distance from the book and from the movie. There were things in this film that I'm not going to spoil anything, but there were certain people that died that I don't really remember. And there again, it's been so I was like, oh, like certain things that happened that were interesting to me. So to carry out an entire second movie without some of these figures, that's going to be interesting. So I am interested to see the sequel, but you know, getting back to things I liked. So it wasn't, I don't think I'm as high on it as you maybe, because I felt like it was drawn out. But the number one thing that I came away with was, the production design, the effects using spaceships and all that, and the enormity of them, and just everything just really, really, really worked. And I think I was critical. I did have a chance because this film was released on HBO Max. The first time I saw it was in the theater, and it was amazing. But afterwards, I was kind of like, I was thankful that it was on HBO Max because it gave me an opportunity to watch it again to kind of solidify how I felt about it.
Yeah.
I think I liked it a little more the second time because I knew where things were going to stop, and I wasn't as impatient about like, okay, why are they not speeding up? But it's an interesting film. So the names and things you didn't find frustrating at all. With all
they were, but again, that's a fault I have with a lot of science fiction or fantasy film. Names and character relationships are just very. They're difficult to track and follow, and obviously the names in Dune, the names of characters are not helping you any. They're very. Many of them very complex names, and
except for the random Duncan, Idaho.
Right, Duncan, Idaho. I haven't got that one.
Right.
So I did find it where I had to kind of pause, and I was watching it at home with HBO Max, pausing or replaying some parts just to kind of follow along. And it's still at the end. There's still things I'm not sure I 100% understood, but again, that's pretty par for the course for me for a lot of sci-fi films these days. I don't know if it's my age. I don't know if it's my ability to memorize. I don't know. But either way, I wasn't any more frustrated by this than I am a lot of typical science fiction or very heavy character relationship films. So, but no, I didn't find any challenges there. I think everybody's well cast in this film. I can't find fault with anybody's performance or who they put in certain roles.
Which I guess you're giving a big accolade then to Timothée Chalamet because as Paul Atreides is kind of the central figure of this film and probably the next one.
I thought he was really good.
A lot of it sits on his shoulders.
I thought he was really good, and fill in the shoes of Mr. Kyle MacLachlan from the original one, the original film version. Yeah, I think he's definitely more of the part. He's younger. He seems more age appropriate. I don't know how old Timothée Chalamet is. I'm sure he's playing younger in this film, but he pulls it off, and I buy him as a kind of a little bit of a kid, a little bit of a hothead, a little bit of a wanting to do more in his life. But feeling a little repressed by family, parents, and their traditions. So I got it. I totally bought that. Thought it worked really well. Again, a couple others I'll call out just I thought were really good. Oscar Isaac, and that's kind of my guy. I mean, I can't really find much that he's done wrong in many cases. And Rebecca Ferguson. Those two, I think, really strong actors, and just they played their part extremely well. Stellan Skarsgård,
and they play the parts. They play the parts of Paul Atreides' mom and dad.
Yes, mother and father.
Right.
Yes, Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron, I thought was very interesting, unrecognizable, and
he's kind of the bad guy.
Yeah,
kind of, in a way,
And I think visually very interesting what they did with him as a character. So, and then even Jason Momoa, who I'm not going to go out and say. I think is an excellent actor and brings gravitas to every role he performs.
I think he's the new version of The Rock.
He is. And I like him a little better than The Rock. I think he's got a little better charisma than The Rock. I think he's got a better presence. I don't know, a little more weight to his characters. And him as Duncan Idaho, I mean, he's playing the part he's supposed to play.
Oh,
he's
absolutely.
Just, go in there and get him. I'm going to protect the family. I'm willing to jump in the face of danger. And he plays that part really well.
I think so. Now that we brought up Mr. Momoa, we haven't talked about Zendaya, who plays. She's not in a lot, but
I was going to say, was she in this movie?
Oh, unfortunately. Okay, nothing against Zendaya, and nothing against what she may be in the second movie, but unfortunately, I felt like she was in this movie too much, and I'll tell you why.
Interesting.
Not that I don't like, but so she plays this character called Chiani, who Paul keeps having these visions of, and I wanted more Momoa. and less Zendaya flashbacks where she has blue eyes. Like,
Wow.
Those drove me crazy. Like one or two, I get it. He sees visions. That's part of the character. But like I would just got so, as soon as they would cut to like a slow motion of her turning, looking backwards, like, oh, are we doing another one of these? Like, it's like, come on. And Momoa for me was what kept me interested in the film, because he would have these little, and they were, important moments. He's kind of a friend. He's, kind of a mentor, I guess, of Paul Atreides. And, he has these little, he's, being serious. And he, like you said, he's kind of the macho, go in, take care of stuff, the soldier guy. But he kind of jokes and pokes fun at Chalamet. And that made me laugh, like really made me laugh a lot more than I thought. And then there's another scene where he is familiar with this group that Paul gets to be familiar with called the Fremen, who are on this planet Arrakis, which is, I guess, people nicknamed Dune. I don't know. But anyways, that's, he becomes friends with them, and they have this culture thing where they like spit upon greeting somebody. And so there again, it's just kind of this, I don't know. He was a perfect device. And I felt like, and you say you feel kind of the same way, he's like, it's the new version of The Rock. Like he has a specific role and he does a really good job. And it's like the character was written for him, even though it wasn't.
Yeah,
so,
sure. I can see that.
I really found myself saying, less flashbacks or less flash forwards, less dream sequences.
Well, part of it is I'm wondering if, all right, let's think about this I'm going to think about it from a little bit of a production business standpoint.
Okay.
Supposedly they had not greenlit a part 2 at the time of the film being released. Now, whether or not I buy that, I don't know.
Right.
But let's assume that they're being accurate and they had not greenlit the film. So there is a chance if this film bombed that this would have been it.
And it would have been an expensive bomb.
It would have been an expensive bomb. And it would have been a very frustrating experience, because then we just invested over 2.5 hours with people liking this movie and finding out that we will not get to see it continue. Now, if I'm Miss Zendaya and I'm all over the posters and marketing for Dune, but yet I'm in the movie very, very, very little because it's part 1 and they never make a part 2, I think there may have been a little business decision to feature her more in this film to ensure they've got the time under her that they would not have had if they just let the story play out and never actually do a part 2.
Gotcha.
Anyway, that's part of my theory with it. Yes, I do think, there's a lot of those visions. I think that's obviously very key to the story, and it's important to make sure you understand that Paul is constantly haunted by these visions, and we need to see that. I will say that where there was a little bit of a gap for me is, the fact that there was so much buildup to Paul having these visions of Zendaya's character, Shani, that when they actually meet, it's actually kind of a
wah-wah.
Yeah, it was. It was a little bit of a letdown. I'm like, oh, so that's it. That's how they meet now. Okay, which again, that's more of a choice in the story making. It has nothing to do with the actors and the performances they gave. Just the mechanics of them actually meeting. It felt a little bit of a letdown. And even though we only have that band of characters for 20 minutes of the film, maybe at the end, that transition was a little awkward. In the storytelling in the film.
Well, and I was surprised too. There's a pretty big action scene that comes, kind of late in the film. And after that action scene happens, there's an attack on Arrakis. After that happens, I was expecting this film to kind of wind up kind of quickly after that. And instead we have a whole nother 30, 40 minutes. And basically I was like, okay, I guess this is so we can meet Zendaya. And well, yes, that's
in Javier Bardem's
character, be reintroduced to him. And I felt like in a way, it's like, there again, it's editing decision. I don't know what part 2 is going to bring, but I'm like, yeah, couldn't we have just left that for part 2?
Well, but I kind of feel like, they may have been looking the same way, as that if they put everything happening on the actual planet, the Dune planet, in part 2, you're talking about a very packed in Dune part 2, where part 1 might have been way too leisurely, just being up on the original planet with the Atreides family. I don't know. Anyway, we'll have to wait and see. We're kind of speculating. We don't know what they're going to do with a part 2, assuming it's only part 2 and they're not going to do a part 2 and 3. I don't know. There's no telling.
Pull like a Peter Jackson and make 3 movies from one book or something.
This movie's doing really well financially. I think they're pretty happy with the returns on it. So you never know. They may want to try to franchise this out and stretch it out more. overall, I thought it was good. I did like it. I had a good time with it. I think visually, if nothing else, it's just really impressive to watch and to see. The care and attention that's put into every shot is still just, for me, a real hallmark of Villeneuve's films. I could watch one of his films with no real story, just a lot of visuals, just interesting put together. And I think that would be entertaining for me. So he's just got a really great, he and the cinematographer team, really a great eye for what they're wanting to put on camera.
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you mentioned to me, I can't remember if it was on mic or if it was off mic after our last review, but you talked about hearing familiar score bits from Hans Zimmer in No Time to Die, basically echoing Dark Knight.
Yeah, I can't remember if I did that on the recording or not, but yes, in No Time to Die, Hans Zimmer, composer, borrowed some theme elements from the Dark Knight films in that score. But yes.
So Hans Zimmer is doing the score and stuff for Dune. How did you feel like Mr. Zimmer did this time out?
I thought it was great.
Okay.
I think Hans Zimmer is becoming our most versatile composer.
And you didn't hear any Dark Knight this time?
Didn't hear any Dark Knight themes or any No Time to Die themes.
More bagpipes than you would have expected?
Yeah, there were some bagpipes. I was surprised by that, but it was good. I mean, it's just, he's a versatile composer.
Sure.
Still, he's kind of in the whole genre camp for the most part with sci-fi and action and comic books. But that's okay. But his stuff varies enough. This was a good score. I really did like the music and use of music in the film. I thought it was really good. If the only thing that's disappointing for me with this is the fact that they just now did greenlight the second film, which means it's going to be at least 2 years, if not 3, when we see it.
I think I've seen that they were going to try to make it or try to put it out in 2023. So,
which again, the shame of it is, if you kind of look back to when Peter Jackson made the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, one of the geniuses of that is they knew at the time they were making all 3 at the same time, so they could be working on it, and you have one every year, so you really didn't have to wait too long. I do think there's a little bit of a challenge in it's going to cause some distance from the original film, having to wait 2+ years for another one.
Right. I mean, because you have, like we've mentioned, you have a lot of big name actors, and then to get all of them. And then I remember that was kind of a joke when Dune was announced. It was like, wait, who is not in Dune? Because you had Oscar Isaac, you had Josh Brolin, you had Javier Bardem. It's like, Dave Bautista. It's like, okay, who's not in Dune?
Right.
So yeah, I think that would be a headache to try to get scheduling right for all of these people. But
although, like you mentioned, there's a lot of the characters in this one that
true
may not be showing up in the second one, so may not have to worry about quite as many.
So maybe scheduling won't be as hard, right?
Could be.
Who knows?
I think I'm recommending it. I think it's a really great adaptation. I think it is setting up what could be an interesting franchise if they're planning on going that route, and I'm sure the movie studios are definitely thinking in that area.
So let me mention something about that.
Yeah.
Within the first 10 minutes of this film, I was liking it, and I am positive on it. But I got to thinking, you know what? Why? And I think I know the answer, but I'd be curious to hear what you thought. Why don't we get any original sci-fi material that is big scope? And what I'm saying is, yes, originally, this has already been done before. So this is a remake. Blade Runner that he did was essentially now Arrival, but
Arrival was original.
But it didn't, there's no sequels. It was kind of a self-contained thing. Why is it so hard to make an original sci-fi film that is like self-contained and original? And then if there's a sequel, there's a sequel. But like, why is it so hard?
I think
especially with all of the stuff that we have nowadays from Marvel, that's not sci-fi, but it's fantasy.
It's all economic driven. I think it's the idea that to do a really big scale production sci-fi film is very expensive. And if you're not basing it off of something that's already a known quantity, it's a huge risk. Now, Arrival, I think, got by because I don't consider it big scale. I mean,
sure.
Yes,
it's not world building. It's like here on Earth. There's already
the actual alien ship was impressive, but that's really the only major visual effect you had to deal with in that film.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's all. That's what I kind of came to. I was like, well, yeah, it's a monetary thing. It's too much of a risk.
Yeah, are we going to put hundreds of millions of dollars into producing an original science fiction film that we have no idea if anybody has any connection to whatsoever?
Right. But that was the excitement. It was like, what if I didn't know this story.
Yeah.
How amazing would that be? Like, because I was blown away in the first 10 minutes. I was like, yeah, but what if I didn't know what was going to happen? That'd be so awesome.
And I kind of didn't know what was going to happen because, again, the David Lynch film, I don't really recall.
Gotcha.
I just recall moments from it because I was really young. I think I was maybe 14, 15.
And you'd
when I
only
saw
seen it probably once.
Yeah. So I was able to go into this and say, I really have no idea what's going to happen with characters or story. So
Gotcha.
that made it nice. That's Dune. It is performing pretty well in the box office. It should still be in the theaters for a little while, probably up until the holidays, through the holidays, I would imagine. And I'm giving it a strong recommendation. Chris, sounds like you're recommending it maybe a little less than I did, but probably more for the pace of the story.
Sure.
Seemed to be a little bit more of an issue for you than it was for me. So, all right. Well, let's move on to our second review, Chris, and it is the film directed and written by Mr. Edgar Wright, Last Night in Soho.
Last night, I had a dream. There was a girl. I got this kind of gift.
And you are?
Sandy. I can see people, places.
So I'll see you again.
You know where to find me. But they're not just dreams. They really happened.
What did you see?
A girl murdered.
You witnessed the murder last night. You believe this was a vision.
Jack, I don't want to do this.
You think you can just walk away?
Do you believe in ghosts?
Save yourself.
The description for Last Night in Soho reads, Chris, an aspiring fashion designer is mysteriously able to enter the 1960s, where she encounters a dazzling wannabe singer. But the glamour is not all it appears to be, and the dreams of the past start to crack and splinter into something darker. With Edgar Wright's Last Night in Soho, we have a film that Mr. Wright, I think, has dabbled in a lot of different genres over his career. Probably people know him best for one of his earliest films, Shaun of the Dead, where he got to take on the zombie horror, but also with comedy mixed in. Then he pivoted and did comedy, but in the police action world with Hot
Buddy
Fuzz.
cop, yeah.
Buddy cop movie. Then you got to The World's End, where it became more of a movie about friendship, but also elements of sci-fi, surprisingly mixed in. I think after that, or before that, might have been the Scott Pilgrim versus the World, one of my favorite films. And then you've also had Baby Driver since then as well, a nice heist movie with car chases and so forth. So he's playing with a lot of different genres, playing with a lot of different styles. This film, he's kind of burrowing into a more psychological thriller / horror / mystery movie, but all done in the environments of both modern day and the 1960s in London, and just for a nice mixture of those two environments, all held together by our lead actress Thomasin McKenzie. People may remember for her role in Jojo Rabbit, where she was played the someone hiding in the house from the Nazi soldiers. You also have Anya Taylor-Joy as Sandy, who is in the description you just heard, the person that she meets, I guess you could say Eloise Thomasin McKenzie meets in her visions or ways of transporting back to the 1960s. Chris, with this, I think you're a pretty good fan of Edgar Wright's films.
Yes.
We actually showed and talked about his documentary Sparks Brothers not too long ago. That was the first documentary that he's put out and done. And there's a lot of use of music on that same path. I think every one of his movies, music has played a really key role in the film.
Interestingly enough, I don't think he's ever used any Sparks Brothers in one of his films, has he? I'd be interested. I need to go back and look, because as big a fan as he is of them, it's just funny. It's like, yeah, but I don't think
Not
he's
that I
ever
can
actually
think
used
of.
them. But
No,
anyways, okay,
I
sorry.
believe so. That's fine. So my question to you is, how does this stack compared to previous Edgar Wright films? I know you and I were both a little let down with Baby Driver when it came out, feeling like it just, using a metaphor, ran out of steam later in the film, started off really strong, but just did not kind of carry us throughout the whole film as much. I was a little let down by the film. Overall, still liked it, but just felt like it could have been so much more. So I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on how this compares to other work of Mr. Wright's.
So, unlike Dune, this is only in its theatrical release right now. It's not on HBO Max, which I guess, coming off the pandemic and how things were released, I'm a little spoiled because I wish I could watch this a second time. I did watch it a first time, so I do have an initial impression. The first, let's say, if we divide it into thirds, because it's an easy thing to do when you're talking about films, the first 2/3 I really liked. Mm-hmm. The last third, something about it bothered me. Not the ideas that were presented, but I think the way they were presented just seemed a little kind of haphazard and a little wobbly. Yeah. But the more I think about it, after the film, like talking with my wife, she went to go see it with me. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm just being too hard on it. And if I know how the film is going to end, which having seen it once I would, if I go back and watch it again, would it actually hold up a little better because you see things that now that you know where the story is going, you're like, oh, yes, this is actually constructed. Like I was a little critical of the construction, thinking it was a little wobbly. But if I were to go back and watch it as a whole, would I actually say, no, you know what? It holds up better than I thought, So I am torn on it. I do like the film, especially, like I said, the first 2/3. And I got to say, you mentioned his previous films, and kind of a common theme, too, is how he works with music. Mm-hmm. And you and I have criticized a film earlier this year, not by Edgar Wright, but Cruella, with the kind of music drops they did, and said that, it just kind of seemed a bit much sometimes. It just didn't really work. But, he uses music drops in this film, and for some reason they work. And I think maybe it's because of how they're entwined with the story. Mm-hmm. But the first song that they play as the movie opens, it's just like, and Thomasin McKenzie's like dancing in a room in this dress that she's wearing. I'm like, yep, I'm in. Yeah. So that's kind of my initial reaction. What are your thoughts?
I'm pretty close to you. I may come out a little more positive even. So okay. I really love this movie. I do agree, and we'll talk about that third portion. I do think I don't know if I felt that was wobbly. I felt like it was maybe veering towards a film that I did not want it to be for a little while, but then it course corrected by the end. So I'm being non-spoiler alert here at all.
Interesting. Maybe we should have spoilers.
We might have to with this one, because I did love the way it ended. And I'm talking the last 15 so minutes of it, final sequence.
Got you.
But I was afraid in these scenes, the time leading up to that finale, that it was going for more of a, again, being very broad on this, going for more of a message movie, which I did not really feel like that really was in keeping with what the film was trying to do. So I felt like it was going a little off the rails for a while, but then it course corrected, ended back where I wanted it to end, and I was happy with it. So that's about as vague as I can be in my description of that.
Okay.
But I loved it. I thought it's just it's a very exciting film. That's one way I look at it. Is I was enthralled, even though some people may feel like that the lead up to everything really starting to happen was a pretty long process. I mean, we spent a good 30, 40 minutes, I think, with Thomasin McKenzie's character and with her moving to London and kind of her setup there and meeting all the people she interacts with before things really started to get interesting. But I still love the way Edgar Wright told that initial story anyway. You're right. The opening musical kind of during the credits, I guess, with Eloise, Thomasin McKenzie's character, singing or dancing in her own room. Yeah, right away I was like, yep, I'm in. I'm done. Sure. You can do anything else you want the rest of the movie. I'm on board. There are two other musical sequences in the film that I think are just standout.
Okay.
One of them is a first dance sequence with both Eloise and Sandy, which putting them together, even though they're from two different time periods, was really, really well done. And it was just a lot of fun to watch this whole dance sequence. Then later in the film, there's one that's shot and presented as a very fun, energetic dance sequence, but it absolutely is not. And it's the Land of 1,000 Dances, where Sandy has now settled into a form of her career that is not good for her or anybody. And you see that through dance in this whole sequence. And yeah, that was really good as well. So just those moments really kind of, even if you start to drift off a little bit from the film or feel like the film's maybe losing some focus, I think when they brought them together in some of those really, really well done sequences, it just worked. I like the fact that ultimately at the end of the day, the film was not, the film is just trying to have a quote fun time with a period piece thriller with some elements of horror in it. Mm-hmm. And even though that you could argue that there's maybe some other deeper things being said with the story and kind of the outcome, overall, it was just a good mystery horror thriller at the end of the day. Yeah, I could go on about some other things I really liked about it, but Chris, you mentioned it felt like it got, maybe didn't hold up as well. There are some other criticisms you had or things you felt didn't work as well? Or
no,
did you want to call
it's really that last
out?
third. And I think maybe I tell you what, before we, after we finish the review, before we get to our news segment, I tell you what, we will do a little bit of a spoiler talk. So we'll warn you before we get there. And then you'll know, if you want to skip that, you'll know when you hear us talking about news that you're safe to start listening again. Mm-hmm. So it'll be after the break. I don't want to spoil anything because to talk about the problems, I think I'd have to do that, and I don't want to do that.
Understood.
So I'll just say, other things that I did like about it, the production design and the cinematography, I thought were also outstanding, giving everything a specific look. A term that I'd heard thrown around before, but I didn't really investigate what it meant. It's giallo-esque. This film is, and giallo is a term. I looked this up. Thank you, Wikipedia. It's an Italian term for thriller or mystery. Mm-hmm. And the one example I think I've seen of these type of films is Suspiria by Dario Argento, who apparently I think played a lot of influences on Edgar Wright. And this film kind of not borrows anything from that film, but as far as the look and the colors, specifically using a lot of red and blue. I think he was kind of in a way paying an homage to that. And I felt yes, that totally worked. And something I'd be curious about if I was better versed in giallo films is whether or not the third act would seem less wobbly. Mm-hmm. Because I think, but I don't know, because the only one I have to base it off of is Suspiria. Their whole thing is mood and establishing these things. And then they kind of have this kind of left turn, kind of oddly thing. So, which Suspiria kind of did. So maybe if I was more familiar with that genre, I would actually like this film as a whole better because I wouldn't be distracted by that final third. Mm-hmm. Because as you mentioned in your intro, Wright likes to jump around between genres. Mm-hmm. And I was very well familiar with the zombie film. So, Shaun of the Dead didn't bother me. Right. Baby Driver. Yep. I know all about heist movies and stuff like that. So maybe the fact that he was dabbling in horror or thriller, but this very specific kind of niche type, type of film, that's what maybe held me back a little bit. I still liked it, but maybe some of the things that I felt like were wobbly, I would have appreciated more if I'd have known kind of what he was mimicking or what he was honoring, I should say.
Okay, I can see that.
So that,
Yeah, I didn't really think too much in that. I loved, it kind of came down to the use of neon for me.
Sure.
Which if I had to kind of bullet down as far as where that, the color scheme and some of the overall look and use. Yes, I'm not as familiar with Argento films, so I couldn't really speak to that as much, how it fit into that. But you take the elements of a really good horror film.
Sure.
Which I have a hard time calling this a horror film because it did have some moments of horror.
Oh, yeah.
But I think at the end of the day, it was a little more than just that.
It was more of a thriller,
It's truly more
type
psychological
thing.
thriller
Sure.
than it was a horror. But
Which I'm glad, because in general, I don't
Yeah.
go for horror films. So.
True, very true. But then you mix that with Edgar Wright's use of music and his just timing, kind of his energetic style of filming and editing the film. It just worked as a total picture for me. I do want to say and call out just some of the performances.
Sure.
Because I already mentioned them once, but I'm going to mention them again because I thought they were both really good. Thomas and Mackenzie as Eloise, I thought was very, very good. She had to carry basically the entire movie.
Sure.
Anya Taylor-Joy, very good, but got to play a very specific part and didn't have to stray too far from it. But the part she played really, really well. I'm even going to call it Diana Rigg, who as Miss Collins, kind of the landlord of the house where Thomas and Mackenzie's character lives. It was her final performance.
Yeah.
So actually, opening credit, they did say
yeah.
for Diana. But she was really good. She was a very, very fun character to play and a fun role. And then Matt Smith as Jack, who comes to be kind of a de facto manager for Anya Taylor-Joy's Sandy. Played a great part. Can't say too much about his part, but I thought he was really good.
It was fun for me to see. I'm familiar with Matt Smith, and others may be too who listen to the podcast, from what he did with Doctor Who. And so I think of him as being Doctor, and you talk about a role that's opposite that. He does not play a nice guy in this film.
Yeah.
And to see him play that dark kind of figure, that was fun for him. And he does an excellent job with it. He still has some kind of charisma to draw people in, but he not a nice dude. So yeah, I agree. I thought he did a good job. It was fun to see him.
I thought all the performances were really strong. And
there's one other I'll call out. Diana Rigg. She's kind of a classic English performer that people will be aware of through a lot of like PBS type dramas and stuff. Another fellow who's in this film has more of kind of a cameo, but still well respected actor. And it was fun to see him on screen. Terrence Stamp.
Oh yeah.
So it was fun to see him and Diana Rigg both in this film. Kind of play. It was fun to see.
Terrence Stamp had such great stage screen presence in this film. He really gets to have a lot of fun with his role. And overall, I was really happy with the film. I'm still Scott Pilgrim versus the World is still my favorite Edgar Wright film. It's not at that level for me. I'm not going around telling everybody I know that they have to rush to the theater and see this. I do really like it though. I think it's a good film in his overall filmography. It matches up well. And if anything else, Thomas and Mackenzie, I think we're going to see a lot more of her in some other roles. She showed that she can basically carry a film and does really well with it.
Right.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of Last Night in Soho, and hope more people go out and see it.
I'll say too, Jojo Rabbit, one of her films, in a smaller film, Leave No Trace, where she plays a daughter in that film. She's clearly going to be. She's going to be big.
Yeah, I think so as well. So that is Last Night in Soho, directed and written by Edgar Wright. We are both recommending it. Again, I'm coming out a little more positive on both these films today, Chris. So I'm in a good mood. I'm happy about the films I've seen. I want to tell people about them. Last Night in Soho is in theaters. Did not have a good opening weekend, so I don't expect it to be in theaters very long. But I do think it's one that when it gets onto streaming, is going to catch up a little bit more of an audience there. It's hopefully more people get to see it there. So, all right, Chris, let's take a quick little break. When we come back, we will have our news items for the episode, and we're also going to have our recommendations of films we think you ought to check out.
Stick around.
I'm sorry.
We'll do a little bit of spoiler talk.
Let's go ahead and do spoiler talk. We're going to do that now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're listening now, but you do not want to be spoiled on Last Night in Soho, please skip ahead a little bit to where you hear us break or coming back with news. Yep. But here we go. 3, 2, 1. Spoiler talk. Okay.
Spoiler talk.
So, yes. Chris, my concern with latter half part of the film, we have a situation where we find out that Sandy, who is the girl from the 1960s, that Thomas and Mackenzie's Eloise becomes kind of enamored with and is in a way able to see her life back in the 60s and follow her around. We find out Sandy kind of gets taken in by basically Jack is a pimp and
Yes.
is basically taking control of her.
Yes.
And, has her doled out to a whole bunch of old rich men.
Yes.
At this particular club where she's working. So that becomes her life.
Which I was not expecting prostitution to be in this film. I was like,
not either.
not
Yeah.
that it bothered me. I was just like,
It was surprising.
because the framework you see from the trailer, it's just like, oh, here's the singer. She gets famous. She's murdered. Oh, what happened? And it's more of like a detective as opposed to like, well, she could sing, but it's like this life that goes downhill.
Yes.
She's never famous. She is basically a prostitute. Yeah, I was not expecting that.
Up to the point where we start to realize that all of these, where we're led to believe, well, we do see that all of these men that she had been with basically are coming back to haunt Eloise. Eloise is basically now haunted by these creatures that you find out are the men that Sandy had been with in the past.
Yes.
And I will admit, the film started to concern me a little bit because I thought some of the effects and some of the way that they had these men come back into her life and haunting her in a way, it was a little campy. And I felt like it was trying to do too much of a message movie of, hey, look, kind of hey, can't treat women that way. And look what happens and all that, which again, I'm fine. Obviously I believe the message, but I felt like that was going to be the whole thing of the movie is, well, see, these men, they were just took advantage of her and she died because of it. One of them got too violent with her, or Jack did. And this is what happens. And, again, I had no problem with the message, but I did not want that to be the whole way the film was going to go.
I got you.
But I was happy when we come to learn that Miss Collins, the landlord, the owner, was actually
is Sandy.
Sandy. Sandy did not die.
Right.
Sandy actually murdered all those men that tried to take advantage of her. And I like the fact that the film, for a moment, tries to make you sympathize with the men for like a quick moment. They're just like, help us.
Yeah, the demon or the ghosts are saying, help us.
And Eloise is like, no, I'm not going to help you. It's not that I really want to she sympathizes with Sandy. She
doesn't want to they're trying to make her call the police and get Sandy in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I liked how it all ended up, but I will admit that last third, there were some moments where I felt like, okay, I don't know if I'm digging kind of what they're doing here.
So I think, so that was kind of what, didn't wobble for you, but that's, I think my problem and the more I've sat and thought about it, I do like this movie more and more. And I think the problem is, which makes it all my fault. I knew who Diana Rigg was going into this film. I knew that this was like her last performance. And like you said, it shows that credit again. I'm like, oh, that's right. She's in this. From the moment she showed up on screen and the way who she was, her character, I was like, that's Sandy. She's still alive. So it's kind of one of the faults. Like if you figured out the usual suspects in that movie, is that the film's fault? Or is that just, you just have seen a lot of movies and you figure this out? And then you're holding it against the film that it kind of, and I think that was my thing, is because I'd kind of figured that out when revelations start to happen, when Jack is not the main bad guy you thought he was. I mean, he's still a bad dude, but he's not the present day Terrence Stamp's character. He's not the same, so I think because I'd kind of figured, maybe that's why I felt like it got a little wobbly, but something about the execution, I felt like maybe could have been smoother, but I don't know. I think maybe it does hold up. The problem was I suspected the Diana Rigg character, Miss Collins, actually being Sandy. And maybe that's why it didn't quite
I had a couple moments where that I've started to have that same consideration. I think the scene where she's trying to break, well, now that you look back on it, you understand what that scene was. But the scene where Eloise has the boy that she's dating over, and then gets tormented by the same demon ghost of the old gentleman, and she's kind of gone.
Miss Collins hears that and thinks that he's up there taking advantage of her or something. Right.
When that scene happened, I kind of had given up, not thinking that Miss Collins was going to be Sandy. I had thought for a moment maybe yes, but I thought, well. But she kind of is acting like she doesn't really know what's going on. She's just trying to get the guy out of the room and make sure Sandy's okay. But then now you look back, you're like, okay, yeah, I totally get it. She remembers what all had happened to her up in that room. And here she's wondering if there's a guy up there trying to take advantage of Eloise. She's going to get him out of the house.
Well, and I think, and also one of the breadcrumbs that I think was a problem for me, but there again, it's my fault. when she's showing her the room, she's like, no men. And then Sandy asks her some kind of question. She's like, well, this used to not be such a nice place. I got this room, I now own this place, but it's basically kind of setting the stage. And I think maybe if they hadn't included that, I would have been more oblivious. But the fact it's like, no, she's saying she's been here for a while. Yeah, maybe it could have
But even if you figured out that Miss Collins was Sandy, I still think the film works as a piece of entertainment. And I think even... Yeah, I did like the way it ended. I mean, I think the whole final sequence of Eloise confronting Miss Collins or Sandy was good. It was just creepy enough and just kind of disturbing enough. And
and she lets her, yeah.
So I mean, I was happy with how it all ended.
Right.
So overall, I think the movie worked, but again, it did take some turns there. I was a little hesitant with. And let me just say this too. Nick Frost, I know, is a mainstay. He's been in so many of Edgar Wright's movies.
That bothered you that he was one of the ghosts?
It didn't bother me at the first moment. It bothered me that he was there like every time we saw a montage of the ghost. It was like after a while, it's like, I almost just wanted to be a cameo. I just liked the fact that we saw him in the club and we saw him. I mean, we see him get killed for a brief second, I didn't need to see him constantly coming back with the ghost, because it's like, all right, I get it. Yes, there's Nick Frost. That's funny.
Right.
We get it. He had a little cameo in there. I'm glad they didn't do Simon Pegg as one. Also, that would have been like probably way distracting after a while. So
okay.
But yeah, it was a fun film.
Something that's interesting, which there again, I didn't want to. I guess I could have mentioned this in the original review, and this is the last thing I'll say. They never really give an explanation as far as what Eloise, how she does that. Like, they show that she's haunted by her mother.
Yes.
Who committed suicide. We learn in the very beginning, but she keeps seeing her mother. Yeah. And then she goes to this, place, and she keeps seeing Sandy when she stays in this little apartment. But even before she first starts going back and forth between the 60s when she gets to this apartment, right? She hasn't done that prior to staying in this apartment.
No, she's only seeing her mother.
Right. Okay. So she gets to this apartment, and that's when she starts doing the 60s. But they never really establish like why she has this power. She's just very sensitive.
She's very intuitive. She's very, I guess, and I guess that's the idea. I was a little confused. I mean,
but at one point, because who is it that sees? It's a classmate that sees that she basically has a hickey on her neck.
Oh yeah.
And so, does she physically travel back,
or did she do kind of inadvertently something
that gave her that? So because in the flashback that happens to the Sandy character, and then she comes back and Eloise has it. So it's like, we don't know.
It never really spends any time exploring why,
which I guess is fine, but interesting.
Didn't bother me.
Right.
I do question the mother in the mirror. It felt at the very end, it felt
she sees her
random.
mother, and then she sees Sandy.
Like her mother basically gets replaced by Sandy, and that confused me a bit.
Okay,
I mean, I didn't know what that was supposed to represent.
Right,
I'm not really sure what the mother and the grandmother, their role in the whole thing, other than the fact. I mean, I get that the mother was ultimately wanting to go to London and be a designer, so Eloise kind of feels like she's following and fulfilling the path that her mother did not. That I get, but why the mother would still show up at the end in the mirror and kind of the grandmother still having that, I don't know. I wondered if there was meant to be something more there that the film just decided not to go into. I don't know. Yeah. But that was the only thing that left me a little questionable at the very end. But overall, I still thought it was a very satisfying ending to the film and liked it a lot.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Spoiler talk over.
We're done with spoiler talk. All right. Here, now we'll go to the break and come back, news and recommendation. All right. Thanks for sticking through that. I'll be back with Foot Candle Films here in just a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Hello and welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv. Chris and I just spent the last part of the show talking over the films Dune, as well as the film Last Night in Soho, Both positive reviews.
Yes.
Both recommended by us. I felt like I was a little higher on both of them, which is nice. I like being the positive one on the film, or the more positive one at times. But both of them are definitely ones we feel like are worth checking out and have a lot of value to them. But Chris, let's talk about some future productions. This is part of the show where we go through some news items. We talk about some movie productions, some announcements, things that could be some interesting projects maybe we may want to keep our eye out on. I'll admit, Chris, this week I didn't really have a whole lot.
Okay.
I kind of felt like I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel with news this week, so I apologize to everybody for that. This is not the most exciting news segment we've ever done.
Okay.
But I'm still going to throw them out there.
We're setting, like we said, expectations low for films. We're setting expectations low for this. This is
these news items are not interesting, but we're still going to bring them up just because we have a commitment to our listeners to bring up some movie news. So here we go. Ana de Armas, who had a short but memorable turn in No Time to Die,
was in Knives Out.
Kind of the lead in Knives Out with Rian Johnson. She is being eyed for the lead in the John Wick spinoff titled Ballerina. Now,
I had heard that there was going to be a Wick spinoff, that it was going to be Ballerina, but I did not know that she was going to be.
Okay, so I'm going to need some help on this.
Okay.
I saw the original John Wick.
Okay.
Have not seen any other John Wicks.
Because of my son, I have seen, who is old enough to see these movies because they are violent. I have seen the second one and the third, Parabellum or whatever. So yes, I have seen.
So is Ballerina a character in any of those films?
Oh, okay. I think, I don't know if she is, but there is a group that has some dancer people in it that I think was in the third one. So I'm going to say, yeah. I don't think Ana de Armas was shown in the film, but yeah, I think there's some,
According to Deadline.
Some connective tissue.
According to Deadline, de Armas is currently in talks to star as the lead role in the new movie, which follows her character from John Wick Chapter 3, Parabellum.
Okay.
A young ballerina training to become an assassin in order to seek revenge upon those who murdered her family.
Okay, so... Okay.
It makes it sound like she was in John Wick 3.
And I just didn't, and she played such a smaller part that I didn't realize that she was in the film, or I didn't know the actress at that point. Because Ana de Armas, she can act. She's a pretty face. So you know how Bond girls are kind of like come and go, interchangeable from the movies. So I may have mistook her for just being a Bond girl, like she ended up being in No Time to Die, but or kind of. So I may have just thought I didn't realize that. Oh, that's Ana de Armas. That's Knives Out lady. So yeah, I guess if I'll take your word for it. So she was in Parabellum. Okay.
I'm verifying this right now.
Okay. And
as we speak,
there is a segment in that film where he kind of has to research some things, and I do remember. I thought, now I can't remember her name. She's in the Royal Tenenbaums. Angelica Houston. She is in Parabellum as well, I think.
Yes.
And I think I was more paying attention to her role and her character as opposed to what Ana de Armas, if she was in that film, and the ballerinas had to do with. All
right, so Ana de Armas was not in.
Okay, she wasn't.
But there were ballerinas.
And I think Angelica Houston's character was integral in making that whole subplot or whatever happened. So that was what threw me. But okay.
There is going to be a spinoff, I guess is the key word here.
Am I John Wick, they are interesting for what they are. But I feel like they've kind of run their course. The original one was really good.
Yeah, I like the original
but it's an
one.
action movie, and I feel like second and third have kind of had diminishing returns.
Yeah.
But seeing the ballerina idea, I mean, to me, it's kind of like the Black Widow type thing, where you take women and you train them to be trained assassins. Or I guess there was the movie that I never saw with Jennifer Lawrence that was Red Sparrow. Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe it doesn't sound all that original to me, but I do like Ana de Armas. So I don't know. I guess I'll wait and see.
Yeah, Lynn Wiseman is set to direct it. I'm not a real fan of his work. Underworld, the whole Underworld series
not
and
a
all
fan?
has his movies and yeah.
Okay.
So we'll see. I do think Ana de Armas is really good, and I think I could see her settling into kind of that action role
Sure.
character.
It's kind of, a lot of movies I seek out because of the cast or the director, or, like obviously I've mentioned I'd be a fool for any science fiction movie that came out. With horror and with action films, I kind of don't get excited about them until I depend on other critics and other people who like those styles to say like, oh, this is a good horror film, you should see this, or this is a good action film, because to me, they all kind of blur together and I don't really care for them. But if I heard, like, that's how I got onto the first John Wick. People were like, no, this is stylish in a way. This is not your just average action film. You should, your Jason Statham, throw him around, people beat him up. No, you should see this. So with the Ballerina, I am skeptical just because it's coming off. It's a spinoff of John Wick, which I feel like is, time, but I'll wait and see. If I hear that it is really powerful, it does bring something original to it. Like it was original Atomic Blonde. Did you ever see that, Alan?
I did not.
With Charlize Theron. And there again, it's kind of this action, spy thriller. And it was like, oh, there's nothing. But Charlize Theron in that role in the film, it was good. Do I want to see a sequel? No. But was it good? Yes. So maybe Ballerina will be like that. Is that what it's called? It's just Ballerina?
Sure. Yes. I don't know. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, let's go with that. It's just going to be called Ballerina. That sounds good. I like that. Actually, as a name for an action film. All right, let's move on to my other news item. Again, I don't know how this is going to play out, but I'm going to read it anyway.
Okay.
Chris, I know you, and I'm sure you are a huge fan of the Rocky franchise. The original Sylvester Stallone franchise, right? I'm joking. I don't think you are.
No, not really.
Probably, if I had to guess, something like Rocky IV, the one where we had him fighting Russian, Drago the Russian.
Right.
James Brown sang on a concert stage in the middle of it. Is this all ringing a bell?
Here's the thing. And I went back recently and watched the first Rocky and was shocked at how much, like amateurish, how much I didn't like it.
Boy.
But I will say
Chris's email address for anybody who'd like to send hate mail.
All about the Dune book.
I will present at the end of the episode.
And here's the thing. I will say though, and I don't know what your news item is going to end up being. I did really like Creed with Michael B. Jordan.
Sure.
And I liked Creed 2 with, and I appreciated Sylvester Stallone coming back for those movies. I think the thing is, it was such a dialed down version of what he had been in the original Rocky movies. And it was an interesting way to reboot the thing. So I did appreciate.
Well, this has nothing to do with the Creed movies.
Okay. Uh-oh.
Nothing at all. Sylvester Stallone, in case you're not aware, has made a director's cut of Rocky IV.
Okay, and that's the first one's Rocky. The second one he comes back and wins against.
The second one he fights Apollo Creed and wins.
And then Mr. T.
Third one's Mr. T. Clubber Lane.
Okay.
Fourth one is Drago the Russian.
Okay. Which Creed 2 dealt
with Rocky IV, and that it was the son of Drago.
Yes,
I believe.
So you haven't seen Creed 2?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
And Drago was his trainer as well too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I have absolutely no interest in seeing a director's cut of what's the actor that plays the Drago? I can't remember. Dolph Lundgren.
Oh, Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah, I have no desire.
No desire.
No.
Even if the retitled director's cut version is actually named Rocky IV, Rocky versus Drago. That still does nothing for you.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, here's the news.
There are a lot of people that really like the Rocky films, and does it show a bunch more fight footage or something?
I don't know. But here's the news item that was stemming this whole conversation.
Sure.
Is going to be debuting for a one-night theatrical screening on November 11th, and then will be available on demand the day after to see the director's cut, Sylvester Stallone's director's cut of Rocky IV.
So. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Now, word is that the company Phantom Events that puts on all these big screenings, the one night November 11th event has already broken records for pre-sales. So people are going.
So just coming to general theaters.
I believe it's for one night in theaters.
Okay.
And then it's going to immediately the next day be available online for purchase or sale.
The fact, I mean, whatever.
So supposedly has 40 new minutes of never before seen footage. The theatrical screening will also include a behind the scenes look at the making of this director's cut.
Man, yeah.
And select locations will have a live Q&A with Stallone.
So
afterwards.
what's your take, since we're on Rocky, what's your take on the Rocky movies? Are you more of a fan than me?
I
Yeah.
am.
Okay.
I think they're fun.
Okay.
And Rocky IV was kind of a critical one for me growing up because, I was really big into movies at that time.
Okay.
Living in rural North Carolina, we didn't get a lot of the more independent films or anything else.
Sure.
So basically when Rocky IV came to town, that was it.
That was it.
That was our life for like a
Have
few
you
weeks.
seen, how many did you see after Rocky IV?
None of them.
Okay.
None of them. Because by the time the Rocky
Alan jumped
V-
off the Rocky
by the time
train.
Rocky V had come out, I had already moved on to college and
Okay.
I had gotten deep into every other type of film.
Got you.
And really had no desire to go back.
And then
and
there's
see.
Rocky
There was
V,
Rocky V.
and then there's
there was Rocky
Balboa?
Balboa.
Oh, it's Rocky Balboa. Okay.
Rocky V. Was there a Rocky VI and then
don't
Rocky
know.
Balboa? Anyway, yeah.
Okay.
Now the Creed movies, I've seen both of those
Okay.
and really like them.
Okay.
They remind me a lot of what I liked in the original Rocky
Gotcha.
for me. So I'm curious. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I may one night have to pull down
But are
a
you
streaming
gonna-
copy
Okay.
of Rocky versus Drago, otherwise known as Rocky IV. I may have to watch that.
But you're not going to go to a theater to see it.
No,
Okay.
no. I think I'm okay
It's
about
not
that.
crazy time.
And then, yeah, I think
Okay.
I'm fine waiting for it to be on a rental downloadable stream format. But I'm curious. Still very, very curious.
Yeah.
About how this is going to come together. Last news item I'll mention is a trailer.
Okay.
And we do like to occasionally play little clips from trailers and then talk about what this trailer may mean for the film it's advertising. So Disney, you're familiar with that company.
I've
and
heard of them.
its subsidiary company Pixar. You've
Yes.
heard of both of those. Obviously, CGI animated films, a rich history of those, have dabbled in sequels from time to time. I can think of Monsters University was a sequel to Monsters.
Yep.
Obviously, Toy Story, you had 3 sequels off of that one. Was that it, or was there another?
There were 4.
Well, there were 3 sequels.
Oh, 3 sequels. Yeah, yeah.
To the
Toy
original.
Story,
Yeah,
So
4
in
movies
all.
total.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Right.
But I don't know if they've ever. Well, I guess Monsters University was a prequel to Monsters Inc. because it told the story before Monsters Inc.
Right.
Regardless, what I was trying to get to with this setup, Lightyear is coming out, and it is a prequel, is from what I can tell, to the Toy Story franchise, and it is about Buzz Lightyear, kind of an origin story of Buzz Lightyear as a character. It's supposed to be releasing in June 2022. It says it's presenting the definitive origin story of Buzz Lightyear, the hero who inspired the toy, introducing the legendary Space Ranger who would win generations of fans. So,
And this is a theatrical release, right? You said June
Yes.
22. Okay.
yes, original feature film release. That's
Gotcha.
my understanding.
Not just Disney Plus. Okay.
What I thought was fascinating casting, perfect casting. Chris Evans is playing the voice of the original Lightyear. Now, keep in mind, this is the actual original person.
That was my confusion.
Yeah. This is not the toy. The toy is based off of this character.
See, that was my confusion. So I saw Chris Evans and I was like, wait, Tim Allen's Buzz Lightyear.
Tim Allen is the toy.
Right.
Tim Allen is the Buzz Lightyear toy.
So the concept behind this trailer is that there was a real person.
That's what they're saying.
Okay, so then that's why, and I like Chris Evans.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't understand. I was like, wait,
Yeah.
why is he doing the young version of it when there's just a toy? Like they're giving him backstory, maybe the backstory behind the Buzz Lightyear toy and how he's a space ranger. And I'm like, okay, so yeah, but then I understood what they were doing. But no, you're saying it's like he's a real person.
Yeah, it says this presents the definitive origin story of Buzz Lightyear, the hero who inspired the toy.
Okay, so that is interesting.
Yeah. I thought the trailer was really good.
It is, yeah.
It uses David Bowie's
David
Life on
Bowie.
Mars.
There you-
Once again, another David Bowie classic being used in a trailer we already had. No, this is Starman.
Starman.
That from this one, Life on Mars was Licorice Pizza that
Right.
they used. Okay, got to get my Bowie
And I mean,
trailer
I like
music
I like
right.
David Bowie, and I guess
do
it's
too.
kind of an easy thing to fall back on to do
It's-
something. But hey, it works,
Star, yeah. I mean,
It's
Starman
it's a
fit.
clever use, I think, so.
Yeah, it didn't bother me. It was a little bit of those moments when you hear the song kick in, you're like, oh, well, yeah, of course. And then it's like, all right, I still wonder if there needs to be a moratorium on
David
Bowie trailer music at some point soon. But yeah, I like the trailer. Do you want to play a little clip of it?
Sure.
Let's play a little clip of Lightyear, and then we'll come back and kind of talk a little bit more about it.
Okay, status. Booster, go. GNC, go. Fido, go. Guide, go, bud.
Cabin pressurization is underway.
As we prepare for ignition.
Flight recorders are on. T-minus 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
We have liftoff.
There's a star waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. There's a star waiting in the sky. He's told us not to fall. Now it's always fun. People. Let the children choose it. Let the children use it. Let all the children boogie.
To infinity.
And
Yeah, so that was the trailer for Lightyear. Has Pixar done a truly all-out science fiction movie?
Not that I can recall.
I mean, obviously there's elements of sci-fi on some of their films, but
Sure.
as far as a true sci-fi epic film,
Well, okay, Wall-E.
Oh yeah, Wall-E.
So that would be one, but that's not dealing with lots of aliens. It's still all about Earth.
It's more
and about
grounded. It's a
humans
grounded
and-
reality just in the future.
Right.
And Lightyear, to me, the trailer kind of gives off a lot of, we're going to go the Star Wars, Star Trek, total just sci-fi fantasy route and just, have fun with it. And I think it looks beautiful. I think it's,
So
I'm
now
excited.
that Alan gave me, I talked to Alan about Giallo and like those influences. Alan gives me, sheds a light on that last night. So Alan sheds the light for me on the Lightyear trailer saying, no, it's not about the toy. And I'm like, oh, so it's the eureka moment. Now watching that trailer, I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. And it would be really cool. I'm excited for this film. And I think it'd be really cool if it kind of spawns like actually a sequel. And it's like, this is kind of what I was talking about with Dune. It's like, it's an original idea and it's like, but it's Buzz Lightyear, not about the toy, about a person. And they actually do like a space thing with like Pixar animation.
They very well could.
That would be cool.
If it makes enough money,
If it
they
makes,
certainly
well, there's
will.
always that.
That's the vibe I was getting. Is I think I'd love to see Pixar actually create a kind of its own science fiction world of films.
And I have
from that character.
And I have a guess of something, which would be an interesting direction. Which I think would be a good storyline for the first Lightyear film, if it kind of takes a tack of Ender's Game. And that's all I'll say. It may be a little too adult for a Pixar film.
I see.
But if they take kind of an Ender's Game idea about Buzz Lightyear, I'm like, that could be, and then they actually make sequel. That could be kind of amazing. So I'm excited.
That's not considered spoiler because we don't know.
No, because we don't
We're
know.
speculating.
None of us have seen the film.
But I do think the trailer looks good.
Yeah.
Animation is incredible. And I'm excited. And I like Chris Evans. I think he's.
I do too.
He's kind of got his role pegged on this. So it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's good.
Cool.
All right. That is the news items I had to share with us
Well,
today.
you undersold the news item with the Lightyear thing because
Really?
I think you
Was
really,
better?
I think that's, yeah.
Okay. I still feel like it was all pretty lightweight this week, but it's okay. Speaking of lightweight, that's going to be my recommendation for this episode too. This is our recommendation part of the episode. This is where Chris and I both give a film as a recommendation that we feel like is worth checking out. The only requirements is we do like for it to be something that's online or at least able that you could rent or watch Chris is looking panicky. Is his online?
I'm going to just have to break the rules on that.
Oh, okay. Chris is breaking the rules. Well, if I'd known that, I could break the rules with something else.
Well, yeah. Do you want me to go first? Or do you,
yeah, let me have you go first. And if I feel like you break the rules enough, that I may break the rules too, because I'm not...
have a better recommendation.
I'm not terribly happy with my recommendation this episode. I have a reason for my recommendation.
Oh, well, hey.
I have more of a soapbox comment to make with my recommendation. But why don't you go first? Sure. What do you want to recommend for us this week?
Sure. So this film is not available online as I speak. But by the time it may be coming shortly to online because I think it's about done with its theatrical run. It's a movie that's still in theaters. I'm going to recommend The Last Duel. It's the one film of Ridley.
You are cheating. That's okay.
But it's the one film of Ridley Scott's that he's releasing 2 this year. We have The House of Gucci, which is coming up in November sometime, late November, I think. But anyways, The Last Duel is it's a period piece, which normally I'm not on board for period pieces. Traditionally bore me. It's not a costume drama necessarily, but it's a period piece. It's medieval France. And it's about, as the title implies, a last duel based on a true story that actually happened. You have Adam Driver and Matt Damon kind of going head to head because there is something that has happened. Basically, Matt Damon's character, which I'm not going to bother pronouncing his name because it's French and I would butcher it. But Matt Damon is married, and his wife is raped by Adam Driver, or is she? And that's kind of the way the film is presented is what I really like because it's kind of like a medieval version of Rashomon, but instead of being directed by Akira Kurosawa, it's directed by Ridley Scott. And it has Ben Affleck as he's a prince that kind of he's buddy with Adam Driver's character. And it has a lot of great acting in it, but the way it's told, there gets back to the whole Rashomon thing, is that it's told from 3 different people's perspective. It does Matt Damon's perspective as the husband. Then it does Adam Driver's perspective as the person who, did this thing with the wife. And it was like, it lets you see his perspective, but then it closes, most importantly, it closes with the actress who plays Jodie Comer, the actress who plays Matt Damon's wife, and it gives her perspective. And it's just like, okay. And it lets you see kind of the folly of men and, ego and everything. But it's just a really, it's really well shot, really well edited, really well acted, but letting you see the story through her eyes and the perspective. It's like, okay, it's just really, really, really good and powerful. And when you retell the same story 3 times, you're thinking, yeah, by the time you get to the 3rd one, okay, what am I saying? But it is because it's the female perspective and you see, but you also, there's so much more than just that. I mean, she gives a good acting job, but it's just like, things that happen in history and how they're portrayed, and unfortunately in real life. And it's just like, okay. And the lengths that people are willing to go to. So I really liked The Last Duel. I am surprised that it is still in theaters, but I think it's probably going to be available online pretty soon because it's been out for a while. But I'm recommending it because I feel like, A, it's a really good movie, and B, it just, I don't know why, but it kind of just got lost. Yeah. I don't know if it's just because theaters are finally open and there's like a rush of new releases and just kind of, it should have had bigger fanfare. But I feel like it's a really solid film. And this is the dude, Ridley Scott. He's the one who gave us Gladiator. And, it's this big epic scale film that people liked. And so it's just, and this has stars, a lot of movie stars in it. Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Adam Driver. It's just weird to me that, it just totally flew under the radar.
I think it got lost. I don't think it was marketed terribly well. And it got lost in the shuffle with some big releases that were coming out at the same time. I'm going to let your recommendation fly, Chris, mainly because I do think I have not seen the film, but I think it's important for people to go out and see it if they can. So your recommendation,
and it may still be in the theater. So if you feel safe going to the theater, go see it there because I think it benefits from being on the big screen too because of how it's like an epic scale type thing. But if not, worry not, because I think pretty soon it'll be
online.
available online.
Yeah, it should be available a little sooner. So, all right, that is The Last Duel, Ridley Scott's film. He's got another one coming out, The House of Gucci, coming out, I think, in a few holiday season here. So, be curious to see with 2 films this year. I think people are already worried about House of Gucci just because Last Duel performed so poorly. Is that going to be a really bad year for Mr. Scott here? I don't know.
So, yeah, it was released October 15th. So, I think in the theaters. So, I think it should be coming online hopefully soon.
What was released in theaters?
Released in theaters October 15th.
House of Gucci?
No, Last Duel was. So, I'm saying Last Duel was released October 15th.
Just 2 weeks
so, I think
ago.
it's theatrical.
All right. Yeah. Could be soon. Yeah.
Oh, wait. That's not right, is it?
No, that's about right. I think it came out 2 weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. It's in theaters barely now. So please go see
just
it.
because
If
a lot
you
of new releases
have not got to go see it. Okay. Well, I'm still going to stick with my original recommendation, although, again, I'm not terribly happy about it, but I have more of a message to stay with this. And Chris, this is going to summarize a little bit of, I think, what we were talking about in earlier our reviews as well. Expectations. Okay. I think right now there's a lot of danger out there with critics in early review expectations setting the mindset for people when they go in to watch a movie. In other words, if early reviews come out or the online community gets against a film early, then it makes that film almost dead in the water at times. And I do feel like people may go to see the film with the intent of, well, yeah, I heard this was bad. And of course you're mentally going to think, well, I'm going to make sure this is bad in my opinion.
So are you, yeah, I'm curious because there are 2 films right now that are about to come out that we will review probably on this show. And they're getting some of that, what you're talking about. The syndrome that you are talking about has happened to 2 of these films.
Neither of those.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be fair because you hadn't actually seen it. So how would you recommend it?
No, this is one where I stumbled across this movie because it just happened to be on.
Okay.
And I actually had a good time with it, which I did not expect. And according to everybody's reviews and letterbox reviews, nobody else had a good time with it. And I wonder how much of it is just
I'm dying to know
they
if
went
I've
in.
seen this
People
movie.
go in with knives out. Yeah, you have, and you were pretty low on it.
Okay, wow.
And I just don't know how much of it is people going with their knives out already sharpened when they go to see this movie and like, okay, well, this movie has to be perfect, or else I'm going to skewer it on the reviews.
Right.
All right, fine. Here we go.
I can't wait.
It is a movie I never watched because I never had any interest in it. Yeah,
I don't know if I've ever been so excited to hear your recommendation as I'm like, are you going to recommend The Mummy?
No, I already recommended that one time. So I already did that.
Okay.
No, this is the last X-Men movie that came out. Dark Phoenix. See, that's the reaction we're talking about.
Oh dear.
I did not think this was that bad. Now, I'm not saying it's good, but I mean, come on. All the hatred the movie got when it came out, I think was just left over from people who were just tired of the franchise.
Could be.
And just exhaustion of it and wanting something different. And also, too, this was right in the midst of Fox, who produced these films, had already been bought by Disney. So everybody knew that this whole franchise was not going to continue. It was going to get dropped.
And did it get pushed a couple of times? The release
I don't remember about that, but it was kind of a, director Simon Kinberg, who I think he's been a script writer for the films in the past, but not a director. So he got to jump behind the camera to direct it. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. I thought it was fairly entertaining. I had a good time with it. It was kind of just like a one-off story. You don't have to know too much about the whole history of these people to really get something out of it. If you're a fan of the whole X-Men series, the original, the older ones, the ones that were really good, this one, doesn't get back up to that level, but I mean, it's still not that bad. I love the cast. That's the thing I think for me is, I think the casting they did in the last few of those X-Men films with Michael Fassbender as Magneto, with James McAvoy as Professor X, perfect.
Right.
I love their casting in this, and both of them were good in this movie. Sophie Turner plays Jean Grey, kind of the lead in this film. She's really good in that role. Ty Sheridan, Nicholas Hoult, Jennifer Lawrence. These are really good performers, and they all I mean, with the exception of Jennifer Lawrence, I could kind of tell she was done with this movie. She was ready to be out of there.
I think that's my problem. Is the whole time I was so focused on that it was just like, yeah.
Yeah. See, I think that's part of the issue with online reviews and online chatter is we kind of get our mentally set to like or not like a film. Now, I'm not saying this is a good film. I'm not saying this is like one that, I'm going to go back and revisit or I want a bunch of people to go see, but I just know it got a lot of hate. And I'm just like, all right, can we all step back a little bit and just watch a film for its own merits? I like the fact that this film jumps right into its plot within the first 10 minutes.
True.
Being a comic book reader like me, I know the history of the X-Men. And yes, there was been periods of time where the X-Men were heroes. People actually, in the comics, they were heroes. People loved the X-Men. They had signs up and would greet them at places. But that wasn't a very long-lived period of time. Here, this movie starts where they are kind of seen as these big celebrity heroes, which I thought was kind of fun. And then they did lose that because Jean Grey takes on the Phoenix Force and becomes a source of destruction. So obviously the world turns against the X-Men again, which again, that's a very comic-rich heritage history thing there. So I thought the movie was okay. I liked it better than the one before, which I think was Apocalypse.
That was okay.
That one was bad.
Okay, I will. Yeah, was it better than Apocalypse? I would say probably yes. I'll have to look at my Letterboxd ratings, but yeah.
And I think I might have enjoyed it even a little more than like Days of Future Past and a couple others. But
oh no, I really liked that one.
Yeah, no, that was good. The First Class I thought was really good.
Sure,
because it introduced all new character versions of these characters. So,
right.
I hate that it went out with all the drama and the lack of fanfare that it did, but I actually thought this movie was pretty good. I mean, well, good. It was okay. I'm going to say it was okay. So it's a very muted recommendation, but I'm saying if you liked some of the original Bryan Singer X-Men films, I think there's enough here to find enjoyable. And they retell this Dark Phoenix story a whole much better than they did the first time they tried it on X-Men The Last Stand, which was the third movie. They tried to do the whole Dark Phoenix thing. And that didn't work.
Didn't do
this was a much better take on it, and I just liked all the actors involved for the most part. So,
okay.
All right, so that's
fair enough.
X-Men Dark Phoenix. Really, Chris, it's the only thing I've watched in the last 2 weeks that wasn't something we were going to talk about on the show.
Got you.
So I kind of had to turn it into my recommendation, but I will stand by my opinions on it.
Well, and I think just to, you'll hear us review these films, hopefully. The two films that I kind of alluded to that are coming out, that have not come out yet, that already reaction has started to flame up on the internet, which, that's what the internet does, for Eternals, and to a lesser extent, because it's, an independent film that people don't care that much about. It's not a Marvel film. The French Dispatch, yes. I've heard. So it'll be interesting to see how Alan and I take with those movies, because critical stuff has already come out about those, even though they haven't been released commercially yet, but festivals and stuff like that. It'll be interesting.
I still say the best thing to do is to go in assuming you're going to hate the movie. Just go in assuming, yep, anything I read online, people hating it, that is definitely where I'm going to be, and just come in. Well, no, not even that, because I think that actually goes against what I was saying. I think there's a lot of people that if you go in with negative expectations, you look for the negative things in the film to harp on. You got to go in with a clean slate, best as possible. Go in, go in to be entertained in a film. Don't go in with preconceived notions of whether this is going to be a bad film or you're going to absolutely love it. It's going to be a classic, because you're either going to be disappointed or you're going to fuel a lot of hate that doesn't really need to be there. So, all right, that's our little helpful lesson for the episode.
A little bit of a good soapbox. Try to have a clean slate. Sure.
I think so. All right, Chris. Well, I think we are done for today. Our reviews of Dune, our review of Last Night in Soho. We talked over some movie news. We talked about the Lightyear trailer for Pixar. And then we finished up with our recommendations. The Last Duel by Chris, in theaters now. Please go see. And then me, X-Men Dark Phoenix, on Disney Plus for free. If you have Disney Plus.
Free.
So again, another way to spend a couple hours.
Sure.
All right. With that, Chris, if anybody wants to compliment me on my recommendation, or talk to us at all about our reviews earlier in the film, how can they get a hold of us?
So you can compliment Alan about recommending Dark Phoenix, or send hate mail to me about not liking the Dune novel or the Rocky franchise.
Yeah.
You can send email to info@footcandle.org. You can also follow us on Twitter @footcandlefilm. Alan and I are on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and sometimes leave short reviews or star ratings of films. And give us a star rating. Speaking of stars, write a review or share with friends on iTunes. It'll help us reach new listeners. We'd appreciate it. We're also available on iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, and Pocket Cast, as well as our episodes are on themesh.tv. That's a podcast network that we're part of, where you can not only listen to our podcast, but bunches of other podcasts or comedy podcasts. There's just business podcasts on there, lots of stuff. And last but not least, I will mention that the Foot Candle Film Festival is now open for submissions for the 2022 Film Festival. We always open up in November. This one's no exception. So if you're a scriptwriter, or if you're a filmmaker, director or whatever, that wants to submit your film, you can do so by just going to Film Freeway. And if you do so now, you're in the early bird period, so you can save a little money. So.
All right. Good deal. Lots of ways to connect with us and contact us, so we hope to hear from you in the future. But until then, we hope you'll listen in for the next episode we release. We'll be talking about a couple other new films and sharing some news and recommendations again. So for Foot Candle Films, the Foot Candle Films Podcast, the Foot Candle Film Society, Foot Candle Film Festival, I'm Alan Jackson. This is Chris Fry. Thanks a lot for listening.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Foot Candle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.